Math is like learning a language. But what does that even mean? Before we can even describe what that means, I'm first going to give you the definition of language. So, language is a system of communication used by a particular country or community. So, in other words, language tells you about how a country or or community works through a set of letters and rules. But there's also a difference between language and communication. For example, let's just say that you're talking to a friend about a car and you're telling him that you're gonna buy a car and you're telling him about oh how good the car is and how it, how it has good mileage, the brand is good, the durability, and every single thing. But because your friend doesn't necessarily know about cars, he doesn't quite understand what your friend is saying, but you're telling him, okay, but he understands and that you're telling him and that the car is good, right? So in this example, the language is the words in which you use to explain or convey a specific idea. And communication is how and in what way you use those words to explain it. Yeah. So whether you communicated well or not depends on whether on whether the other person understood what was said or not. But that's not fixed because there's more factors involved to good and effective communication than what was said, right? And trust me on this. Yeah, because there's also body language, which is also another a language as well. But again, it's not fixed, but you I just have to understand the various types of languages and um uh, and that are out there and what it conveys, right? So when it comes to mathematics, math is just like language, but instead of letters and words, and there's even like a letters in math. So math is made up of letters and also of words because there's word problems, but it's also made up of a lot of numbers, equations, and illustrations like charts, graphs, and tables. Yeah. So all of these things, especially the graphs and the charts and the tables, they all explain what is happening in the world through these illustrations. And it can range from something like simple things like calculating how much you need in order to buy a new phone to more complex things like representing and manipulating data in machine learning using vectors and matrices. I've also come across a research paper, and that was conducted by five professors across five universities in the US. So they came together and they conducted a research paper examining the mutual relationship between language and mathematics. And they concluded that language is significantly and moderately associated with mathematics, and this relationship is stronger for relatively complex language and mathematical skills. And they've also said that maths and language predict each other for their development, suggesting a reciprocal relationship between the two. Right, so that kind of shows you again the evidence base and the research base between language and mathematics. However, there's a positive side to all those for Students think that and that math is just all about equations, but no, it's not, right? So as you get older, you're actually going to see less and less numbers and more so charts and more so graphs, charts, and tables. But this is going to vary depending on the field and that you're in, of course. Yeah. And but also to this, it doesn't mean that you don't have to understand the numbers behind the math, but in fact, you are going to have to use the numbers in order to produce the tables and the charts. And so you do still have to use both and understand both the numbers and the charts. All right, so let's get to actual language now. Right, so as someone who has studied French for a long time and have studied it in all three learning institutions, and I've also spent a little time in France as well. Um, I've also come to notice that the French taught in school is a bit different to what is actually spoken by French people. So, so the language is also a lot quicker, but it's also a lot more slang that's used, especially in informal situations. But in formal situations, you can see a little bit of school math being used in there. But as I said, that's only in like working situations and scenarios. But like in a real life, there's more informal situations than there is like work situations, especially like if you're bonding with like other persons and getting to know the culture. I think that understanding both a formal and informal is going to be very beneficial for the individual. And so again, it's based on context. And so you have to learn all about the context of the language in which you're studying it in. Right. So all in all, if you remember one thing from this video, I want you to remember that math is not as hard as it looks. It's just made up of a set of letters and numbers to represent what is happening in the world in various topics. Okay? And fields. All right. So goodbye, and I'll see you in the next video.